What are they going to lose if they don't make the deal?
What are they do every single bar he drops? What are they going to lose if they don't make the deal? All right, who has some ideas? What's the client going to lose, Alex? What is the client going to lose if they don't make the deal?
Their family's trust. No. Yeah, maybe to a certain extent, but yeah, I mean they're losing out on, for one, all the legacy benefits. Like if you go somewhere else, right? You don't get none of that additional support, the 24-hour payout. They lose out on really more than anything, like their family not being protected, right, when that time comes. And your family not being protected when that time comes, the type of position that you'll throw them in is obviously not something that at least anybody who cares about their family or their friends wants to do to them, right? Nobody wants to put their family in that type of position on the hardest day of their life, where now they're suddenly financially burdened with this, bill that could range anywhere from, just a few thousand to even upwards of, 15, 20, even more $1,000. Like that's insane. And
That's a really good answer. Yeah, the main thing is that they're what are they losing? Their family not being protected. The position, what you said is the position they are throwing them in. Have you ever had a bill of $10,000, $15,000, $25,000 slap your plate before? Some of you probably have on this call. It's a lot. It's definitely difficult to see that $10, $20, $30,000 bill, right? But in insurance, right, you could go to the club and spend $10,000 on some bottles. So what is your guys' primary focus here, right? Are you guys going to be using that money for your family? Are you going to be putting your family in a better position, or are you going to continue to waste your money? So I don't know what you guys are spending your money in on your free time. I know a lot of you guys aren't married, you guys don't have kids yet. But for you young guys that aren't married and aren't having kids, like, you guys need to start putting money away right now. Like, if you guys want a family and you guys want kids, and that's something that you want, like, no joke, I don't want to have to send my kids to a public school. I want them to have private teachers. All right. I don't want my kids to have to go to a public school. I want my kids to have private teachers. How much is that going to be? $6,000 to $15,000 a year? At least. Sean, you're smiling, but man, you better start saving up that money, man. I know you want kids. Adrian, you look like a good dad. Alex is already a good dad. So I wouldn't don't be spending your money on things you guys don't actually need. That's lesson 101, right? You don't be a wasteful spender. Hold on to your talents. Okay. But let's go to Mikhail. What are they going to lose? What are they going to lose if they don't make the deal, Mikhail?
Yeah, I would echo the first sentiment that comes to mind is really just the protection. That's ultimately what it comes down to. But more than that, it's the emotionality behind what it means for them as a father or a mother or a sister, a brother, a family member that's allowing their loved ones to be put in whatever the dire straits that they may possibly be thrown into, utilizing Alex's words, at the time of their passing. Because if that isn't handled, it says one thing, and this is where we can also utilize labeling and from a personality and archetype and character standpoint within your calls, is you're speaking to the fact that this is a respectable person, a responsible person. These are character labels that during the call you want to bring into the frame of your client's mind, because it creates a consistency bias that somebody that is responsible basically follows through with certain actions. So you're going to say, oh, you're obviously a caring father, you're obviously a caring mother, and you don't want your son to be left with this burden behind with your passing, right? And they're like, yeah, absolutely, wouldn't want that to happen. And as you actually create these layers of labels of personality, later on in the call, if they start attempting to reject that, they have to reject all of the different consistencies that they've already agreed to, that they're caring, that they're loving, that they're responsible, that they're consistent, that they're an action taker, whatever it is that you've brought through in the call. So they lose out on the perception of themselves as whatever they've created in their mind as to how they show up for their families, as well as whatever amount of financial expenses that will be occurred at the time of death, and the respect, the trust, etc. of their family.
I love that. So what you're saying is that you're padding the client with their identity before you get into the close, right? So the
Correct.
identity of this client is you're a good dad, you're a good mother, you're taking care of this. I commend you. You know, a lot of families leave their families with these burden. Isn't that horrible? Yes. So you're padding the client's identity, almost building up their ego and pride a little bit. And then at the end, if they don't do it, they're going against who they feel like they are because you've told them who they are, right? And that's the power of words right there. So that's a really good takeaway as well.
What are they going to lose if they do make the deal? It's never rational, and it's always bent based on their distortion of reality. Now, any given situation can be offered as a gain or loss. For example, you're a company that's going to make them 23% more money. You can say, work with us, and you make 23% more money. There'll be a 23% gain. The return on your investment will be 23%. Or you can say, choose not to work with us. Stay where you are. Don't change anything. And it's going to cost you 23% every day.
Wow, that's really, really good. Elijah, can you rephrase that into final expense words?
Yeah, not really, honestly. I was just typing a message.
Oh, all right, here we go. Try
Not to
again.
work.
I missed it.
Stay where you are. Don't change anything. And it's going to cost you 23% every day. While you sleep, not working with us is going to cost you 23% day in and day out.
So the question is, what is the opportunity cost of not getting this policy?
Yeah, I want to reference something. I don't know who said it. It was maybe Titus or Alex. Something about like the price versus the cost. The price is what you're going to pay now for the value that you're getting. The cost is what you're ultimately spending if you don't, buy the product, which is at the end of the day, you're going to be spending a lot more on funeral expenses. You're not going to be having the peace of mind that comes with having all of that set up already for your family. And so that's how I would, relate that to final expense.
I love that. Sean, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, what you said is pretty good versus the price and the cost, but the biggest thing is like just asking a client, like, if you did not get anything in place today, Miss Karen, what would that look like for your daughter if she would have to like, pay for your final expenses? So that's how I would like bring the loss and use that same like concept. And then it would just like show
Perfect.
them the loss of not, getting something in place.
That's awesome. Zach, you're up next, and Antonio. So make sure you guys are. Where did Antonio go? Antonio, you kind of turn your camera on?
Yeah.
Are you there?
Oh, okay. I was just gonna hair's pretty wet. All right, I'll turn it on.
All right, it's okay. Beautiful.
Well-
There we go. Don't worry.
Fear of loss is what keeps people up at night. Nobody loses sleep, nobody gets insomnia because life is good and they're making money and tomorrow is going to be more profitable than today was. They sleep like a baby over gains. Fear of loss is what keeps people up at night.
That's deep. Fear of loss, and this is the realm of in business, right? You want to hire somebody, right? You want to bring on an agent. When I think about hiring people, I think about hiring people that are better than me, right? If you can try to hire someone that is better than you, how are you going to hire someone that's better than you, right? Fear of loss. What is that person going to lose if they don't work with you?
Because you get a loss in your head and it burrows into your psyche and it eats at you and it keeps you awake. And that's why it's one of the dominating factors in human decision making. All right, now I'm going to tell you about the F word, fair. The F-bomb, Fair comes up in nearly every single negotiation. As soon as you look for the word fair and aware of how much it comes up, rarely does it not come up. People use it to manipulate other people. People use it when they're backed into a corner. The concept of fairness is fundamental to what we are as human beings, and that's why it comes up all the time. A classic example is something called the ultimatum game. Let's say two people are walking down the street. $10 falls out of the sky. It's $10 in found money. They have the opportunity to split the $10. One of the two people gets to propose how it's going to be split. The second of the two people gets to only accept or reject. They get to throw out one number. The proposer can only propose a split one time. There's no back and forth. There's no debate. There's no convincing. There's no subsequent rounds of negotiation. This game has been played around the world. One of the things I love about this game is that it drives game theorists crazy. They hate it because people react as human beings. People say 5-5 is the only fair way to do it. And I say, all right, so you wouldn't take 3? You know, I might say to you, what about 2? What about 4? No, that's not fair. Well, how is 0 better than 3? You're saying, I feel disgusted if I'm asked to take 3. I should get 5. Well, if 3 makes you feel disgusted, how does 0 make you feel? But people will destroy deals if they feel they've been treated unfairly, intentionally destroy deals and walk away with nothing. On the other hand, people are much more likely to make a deal if they feel the process was fair. And they might take a bad deal or a less than optimal deal if they feel they were treated fairly.
That's deep. So even if you can't beat the rate, right, Zach, is there a situation where maybe you weren't able to beat the rate, right? But it came into not necessarily the cost, but the value you were providing, but you had a great relationship with that client where they still ended up signing a deal with you? Anything that comes to mind?
If you build really good rapport, you can definitely get someone to buy. Maybe not even rapport, but get them to just like you. You can get someone to buy from you, even if someone else can beat their rate, regardless of like the legacy stuff. I've definitely had stuff like that happen. What's coming to mind though, and I don't have a solution to this, but the people that feel that they're being treated unfair are people that are like unhealthy and they're going to get a waiting period. And they're like, don't give me a waiting period. I'm like, I'm sorry that I can't take your health conditions away. And they get really mad at you. So I don't know if that's really helpful, but just sharing an experience I've had with that.
That is really good. So it's not going to work every single time, right? But the number one way that I always handle that is making it really exciting for them. So as soon as they go from standard to modified, and which everybody's able to get approved at Senior Life for the new people that are on the call, everybody gets approved at Senior Life. It's 100% placement, 100% approval. You're always guaranteed to get paid no matter what, which is really nice. Okay, but let's say somebody goes from a standard to a modified deal, which has a 2-year waiting period. Oh my, John, this is really great news. This is awesome. So remember you told me about the heart attack and the cancer medications? This is so amazing because pretty much 99% of every other company in the United States of America would decline you right now. But man, the underwriters just came back and I got really good news. Are you ready? Awesome. Okay, great. So this is what we're going to be able to do. So your premium is actually going to go from $99 a month. It's only going to go up $12, so it's going to be $111, and the face amount went from $9,000 to $7,000. And this is really great news because I'm guaranteed to be able to get you paid. So your wife knows she's going to have that money when she actually needs it. You would want something that's guaranteed, right? Okay, and $11 a month's not too crazy, is it? All right, no answer. Okay, beautiful, awesome. And then we're gonna go ahead and yep, looks like I still only need the last 4 of the social, but we'll get around to that in just a quick moment. And then you completely just push it off and keep moving. What I see a lot of agents do is they sit there and they get stuck on the quote. Okay, when it changes from standard to modified or even preferred to guaranteed issue, you don't sit there and wait for the client to give you a rebuttal. You give them the answer, you are excited about it, you give them a quick solution, and then you move on from that topic immediately. You don't want to continue to dwell on that, right? You can even throw out a random thing in your report, like, oh my gosh, and wait, you were saying something about like your aunt, right? Like you literally just give them the solution, tell them what's going to happen. All right, so it's really great news, John, because of the cancer, heart attack, stroke, Alzheimer's, and dementia, we were able to get you approved, and pretty much every other company in the United States of America would have denied you. But this is really great because your wife is still going to get that money she needs the most. So it's only going to change by like a few dollars, and the face amount is going to go from 10,000 to 7,000. All right. Okay, awesome. And you were saying something about your kids, right? Are they go to school in Pittsburgh? Wow. All right. So once you give them the information, you give them the quote, you get the quick confirmation yes, right? The confirmation yes, the commitment yes, or the counterfeit yes. You get a quick confirmation yes, and you move on. So a lot of the times what happened for Elijah's policy, his policy yesterday, right? He calls me, he's like, I knew the meds were going to come up because it always happens. 50% of the time meds come up at the end. So I texted him, I'm like, hey man, if meds come up, hit me up right away, right? And it went from super preferred to preferred. And so Elijah, that's something that we have to work on, right? That's like, once you get past the intro, right? Intro is number one, right? Then obviously presentation is number two, then close is number three. And then navigating the end of the sale when medications come up is like, next level. So the medications come up on your screen
I will
immediately.
say, Luke, that gave me a lot of clarity on how to deal with the medications in general. Because before I had heard you talking about one medication per condition, but I didn't really understand it until that sale yesterday.
Perfect.
Like what
yeah.
you meant by that.
Yeah. It is definitely. It's super duper easy, but until you actually see it, it makes no sense, right? So. Thank you for sharing that. So, right, everybody's able to get preferred or super preferred. If it's one medication per condition, other than that, there's like COPD and a few other things that Senior Life is strict on. But Alzheimer's, dementia, Senior Life is strict on. Anxiety and depression, super lenient, right? You can be taking anxiety medication, a depression medication, a sleep aid, a sedative, a pain medication, any type of high blood pressure, diabetes, all of it is going to be super preferred, best highest class rating. So the really only things that's going to drop your rate at Senior Life is going to be heart problems, COPD, hospitalizations, and like literally cancer, heart attack, stroke, Alzheimer's, and dementia. So Senior Life underwriting is mad lenient, but we do a prescription check at the end of every policy. Within 30 seconds, you're going to have all of their meds pop up on your screen, and then it's going to ask you the condition of the medication. And when the conditions of the medications come up, I don't go off of what the client tells me. I go off of what Google tells me, because they might be taking gabapentin and they think it's for like restless leg syndrome, or it is for restless leg syndrome. They might think it's for depression, right? Like they're taking all of these meds and they don't know what the actual condition is. So when you get a medication from a client, trust Google over the client when it comes to the conditions of the medications, because you don't want to accidentally make a blunder and blow your whole deal because you took the client's word for it when it's literally not for that thing at all. So go off of what Google says the condition is, if there's any type of confusion in that realm.
So fairness is really the issue that makes or breaks deals. All right, here's the way a counterpart will try to use fair to their own advantage. They'll say, I've given you a fair offer. Or they might say, I just want what's fair. In either instance, they've accused you of being unfair in a very subtle way. If you don't take that deal, or if you don't make the deal that they want, you're being unfair. Your fairness as a human being has been called into question. It's a great way to manipulate you short term. And you will react because you don't want to be unfair. So it's going to have an effect on you if you don't see it coming. So how do you respond to that tactic when it's used on you? Say, I'm happy to be shown how I've been unfair. Show me the information. I'm open to learning. Let me see what it is. They're either not going to have it or they know they don't have it. So how do you use the F-bomb positively? How do I use it? At the beginning of a negotiation, I want you to say to the other side, it's my intention to treat you fairly. If at any point in time I've been unfair, let me know. We'll go back and address it and fix it. Be proactive. Put yourself in a position where they'll deal with the problem, because otherwise, if they feel they've been treated unfairly, it's going to explode on you.
Can we run that back?
Yeah.
Here's say, I'm happy to manipulate you short term, and you will react because you don't want to be unfair. So it's going to have an effect on you if you don't see it coming. So how do you respond to that tactic when it's used on you? Say, I'm happy to be shown how I've been unfair. Show me the information. I'm open to learning. Let me see what it is. They're either not going to have it or they know they don't have it. So how do you use the F-bomb positively? How do I use it? At the beginning of a negotiation, I want you to say to the other side, it's my intention to treat you fairly.
So this goes really well with the accusation audit. So I've been using this pretty much every presentation now, at the beginning of the call. Hey, John, I have 2 goals today. Number 1 is I want to treat you fairly. And if there's any time in the presentation where I've been unfair, I want you to stop and let me know immediately. Okay, that's goal number 1. Goal number 2 is I want to keep it affordable and in your budget. And goal number 3 is I want to make sure we have enough for your funeral and final expenses to cover what you need, not what you want. Because a lot of people think they think they need like $100 million of coverage, right? But they only need 7,000. So I wanted to be able to tell them what they actually need versus what they actually want. And then at the end, after that, I'll say, and I know you probably think that I'm just a crummy salesman and we're never going to talk again. However, I'm going to give you my personal cell phone number, the same number my wife and kids call me at. So you know you reach me directly. I'm going to be your personal agent for life. All right, so I do an accusation audit on the salesman part because, look, they know I'm a salesman, right? Let's just get it out of the way. Hey, you know, you probably think that I'm a slick talking salesman. However, I want you to know that I'm going to have your back on that worst day of you and your family's life. I'm going to help you file that death claim, and I'm going to give you my personal cell phone number so you don't have to talk to any robots, right? And then that humanizes you, right? So I hit them with the fairness, the goals, and the accusation audit right at the intro, basically to really pull down their walls, right? Because a lot of these people, they have their walls and their guards up because they know they're calling into a salesman, right? And then you're going through the power and the battle of the equilibrium, which is, you know, who's got the real power in that conversation. Try to stay in control, but remember at the end of the day, they know they have the account number and that's what you want. So don't come across too salesy, right? Push for the account number 3 or 4 times, but don't be afraid to continue following up with them, but definitely push for the account number 3 or 4 times.
If at any point in time I've been unfair, let me know. We'll go back and address it and fix it. Be proactive. Put yourself in a position where they'll deal with the problem, because otherwise, if they feel they've been treated unfairly, it's going to explode on you.
Can I say something?
Absolutely, Mr. Johnson. Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you? Well, what you've done pretty much is at the beginning, the last thing you just said was kind of an agenda type. You know, what you tell them what you're going to do and how the meeting's going to go, basically. And if you're a good salesman, it's kind of nice at the end, you know, at the end of what you were just saying, to almost say, and at the end, if everything sounds good, we move forward, you know, that kind of thing. That's what I used to do when I sold windows and doors, because so many people in sales, you go to their door, because I've done a lot of door-to-door sales, and they don't think you're going to, I mean, they're surprised when you ask them for the sale. So if you tell them at the beginning, like in the agenda or what you were just saying, at the end, if you like everything, you know, we'll move forward or whatever, you know, however you want to say it. But basically you're going to tell them right at the beginning that you're going to, you know, if everything's, you know, the way you like it, we're going to move forward. You know, we're going to call the office and get everything started. Because for some reason, people act surprised when you're asking for the sale at the end, even though they know that's what you're there for. Have you ever had that happen? I used to have that happen all the time. And so I started giving an agenda and telling them at the end, basically, I'm going to ask you for the sale. I don't say it like that, but that's what I tell them so that they don't act surprised at the end.
Beautiful. Absolutely. It seems like that's something that we all need to get better at, is framing the call at the beginning in the intro, just like Mr. Larry was saying. So find out at the beginning plan out the agenda with the call so they're not surprised at the end. Right at the end, you see in a lot of situations where they're going to be like, wait, what is this for again? Like, wait, hold on, wait, what do you like? Why do you need my account number? Like, what do you mean? I just gave you the whole presentation. The whole thing is the only reason I'm here is to get your account number, right? So when the clients are surprised at the end why you're asking for the account number, it's because the agenda wasn't set up properly from the beginning. So really great input there.
Here's how I would encourage you to think about deadlines when it comes to negotiations. Somebody setting a deadline is an attempt to kick some progress into gear. And if it's a real deadline, there's probably less time than they actually gave you anyway. But deadlines are designed to get progress started. Every once in a while, in extreme circumstances, a deadline is a hard deadline. Very rarely, of the thousands of businessmen that I have coached, businessmen and women that I have coached in negotiations, since I left the FBI 12 years ago, one person has told me one instance when the deadline was a hard deadline. That's thousands and thousands of instances. And in your career, maybe you can think of one time when it was hard. The rest of the time, it wasn't real. It was something put into the situation by one side in order to kick some progress into gear. And if people are making substantive progress on what they're trying to accomplish, deadlines go away. So anytime a deadline comes up, shift your thought from the deadline to how do we make progress to work together towards a goal. And the vast majority of the time, the deadlines will go away. Two of the techniques that we've covered already are great ways to respond to deadlines. First way is the labels. Simply say, it seems like you're under a lot of pressure here. It seems like you're trying to get things done by a certain time. It seems like this is an involved process. It seems like.
Keyword, right? It seems like. Let's run that back. Labels, right? So for the people that are on here that are new, we focus heavily on mirroring and labels. Okay, mirroring is repeating the last 1 to 3 words that the client has said to have them open up about a certain topic. Okay, labeling is understanding without saying I understand. Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Oh yeah, that makes sense. I get you. Oh yeah, I understand. No, it seems like, right, you want to repeat or summarize or paraphrase what the actual emotion of the client is, right? It seems like, it feels like, it sounds like. All right, so this is what we talk about when we're talking about labeling. This is what we're referring to. It seems like, it feels like, it sounds like.
Labels. Simply say, it seems like you're under a lot of pressure here. It seems like you're trying to get things done by a certain time. It seems like this is an involved process. It seems like the world's going to come to an end if we don't meet that deadline. You know, that's either an accurate.
All right, I'm going to give you a scenario, Sean, and I want you to label it, okay?
Okay.
All right, so my family is just going through a really tough time right now. I lost my cousin last week, and the family didn't have any life insurance. So I just wanted to call in. I just wanted to quote. I don't want to get anything today. So I just wanted to check a few things out.
Ah, okay. So it seems like, due to your cousin passing away and you guys, having to come out of pocket for everything, you've been put into this, kind of fear where you don't want your family to go through that same thing, right? So when your cousin passed away, like, what exactly did that look like? Did your, family start a GoFundMe, or, how did that go?
Perfect. So there was 2 parts of that. The first part was, it seems like he paraphrased without saying, "Oh, okay," right? Instead of just saying, "Oh, wow." Like now the client knows that he's actually intentionally listening, all right? And then the second part, he said, "What was it like when you had to deal with that situation?" Right? What do we call that? A calibrated question. A calibrated question that's going to make the client open up. So that was a label into a calibrated question. The label shows the client that you're intentionally listening and that you know what they're going through. The only thing that I could have said back to Sean was, "That's right." All right. And then he hit me with a calibrated question afterwards. So that was really good. Alexis S., are you there?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to hit you with the situation. I want you to give me a label, okay?
Good.
All right. Hey, so I don't know. You kind of just called me out of the blue and you're talking about like funeral and final expenses. I'm not really too sure if I want to do this today, but it's something that I've been looking into.
Okay, yeah, totally hear you here. Look, it just sounds like, you just been looking for some coverage here and you just haven't found
All right,
the
all right, all
right
right, all right, all
policy
right, all
for
right,
it.
all right, all right, all right, all right, all right. So at the beginning you said I. No, remove the I's. Remember we were pushing it on the U's, the we's, the us's. All right, so remove the personal pronouns. Remove the personal pronouns and then just get straight to the label. So I'm going to give you another one.
Okay.
All right, yeah, so you kind of just called me out of the blue. I'm on my way to the grocery store right now. This is something that I wanted to get taken care of, but I just don't know if I have the finances for it, and I'm kind of busy right now.
Okay, yeah, it just sounds like, you want to make sure that, you get a policy that fits your budget needs, correct, Luke?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
See how
perfect.
much
So if I
better
can
that
find you
was?
some. Hmm?
That was way better.
Okay.
Okay. And then yeah, that was a 9 day better. All right, really, 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 really good. Adrian, I'll give you a situation. I want you to properly label it. Is that cool?
Sure.
All right. Yeah, Adrian. So you quoted me at like $180 a month, but I think another company quoted me like 160. I'm just not really 100% sure on if I want to go with Senior Life just yet.
So it sounds like it's more of a price thing for you, or was there just not a good value with the legacy program?
Oh yeah. So it's mainly the price. I do really, really like Legacy though.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, it looks like that you won't be able to lock in the rates for those final expense, burial and the cremation. At the end of the day, if you go to that other company, you're still going to have to be paying extra for the funeral as opposed to locking in your rates. Is that something that you'd like to do?
No, 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 no. Perfect. That was good. Right. He ended it with a no question, which I really liked. And so the no's, right, are just as powerful as the yeses. So ending in a no question makes the client feel more comfortable, makes them feel more safe. Everybody likes to say no. My 1-year-old and my 3-year-old, they like to yell no, 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 right? Because it makes them feel safe and it makes them feel comfortable, makes them feel in control. So if you allow the client to have a no question, that's really gonna move them in the right area. And so I know I put you on the spot there, so that was good. If a client's like, "Oh yeah, it's just a price thing, it's 180, but I really like Legacy." Look, you don't even need as much coverage as you would with Senior Life. We actually can get away with a whole lot less coverage because of Legacy. So I know you really want that 20,000, but you really only need, right? There's a difference between needs and wants. You only need 15,000, which will lower your premium and will get you at a lower rate. Plus, you still get Legacy. You don't even have to worry about that other policy at all, right? So that's something that we can do. Not so good. Not so good. I'm getting evicted. I'm weak.
Can you also say, can you also do takeaways like, you go, well, can you start taking away things and people start going, wait a minute, I don't want you to take that away. I want that. Oh, well, then that's when you start building the value again of, well, they don't want you to take things away. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. 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 I know that Devonte, you're probably an expert at takeaways. What are some ways that you do takeaways in an insurance presentation?
My biggest thing, I was asked, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That's my biggest thing. I would say, does that make sense at least 1,000 times, right? Because a lot of times people will say, yeah, that makes sense. I'm like, okay, what makes sense about it? So that's my go-to. I always feel like I want to make, especially being in insurance, I never want to say something to you and then you don't understand what I'm saying, and then you tell me yes you do, and then you get drafted, and then you're like, what is this? So does that make sense? Cool. What makes sense about it? Can you explain it to me? Just so we're on the same page, and that way
I
it gives
love
me
that
a
because
chance. I
a
can
lot
go
of
back and
people.
fix it.
My apologies, brother. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Right.
So, my bad, bro. I just really like what you said, and I wanted people to catch it right. A lot of most agents will actually say, "Does that make sense?" Right? They get that far, but they never ask the next question, which I was actually blown away by. What makes sense about it? Right? So it's cool to say, "Does that make sense?" And they say yes, but like, do they actually understand what you're saying? Right. I literally told a client yesterday after I was done on the calls, like, it sounds like you really just don't even know anything about life insurance. And he's like, you know what, Luke, you're right. I don't know anything. And I'm okay admitting that. And I was like, wow, okay, well, that was a first. But I was like, so what makes sense about it? So if you're going to ask if someone, does that make sense? Which I know you guys all do, right? We were all trained to do that. What makes sense? What makes sense? Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Right? Take it a step deeper, like what Devontae said. What makes sense about it? That's really going to deepen their level of understanding about, legacy specifically, about the cash payouts, a 24-hour advance, and day one coverage, all of those things. You really want to make sure they have a grasp, because a lot of people, they're coming in just focusing on the price and the coverage, price and coverage, price and coverage, price and coverage. You want to take them away from that as soon as possible. So I'll literally ask them, do you have any other questions besides price and coverage? Do you have any other questions besides price and coverage? 90% of the time, they're going to say no. Right? They're going to say, no, I don't have any other questions. Wow. Okay. Well, what about the payout? What about the waiting period? What about the restrictions? What about any clauses or the accidental death or the legacy benefits? You forgot to ask about all of that? Okay, well, good thing you've got an agent like myself who's willing to go into that information with you guys. So do me a favor. I'll be your agent for life. Grab a pen and paper and I'll wait. So at the very beginning of the call, at the very beginning of the presentation, I want to know what they know about insurance. And 99% of the time, it's nothing at all. Right? So you want to show them their gaps in understanding. You want to show them their gaps in knowledge, because other agents don't take the extra step. Other agents don't take the extra step. So if you take the extra step to give them a deeper level of understanding, and then you ask them what makes sense about it, you guys are going to be flowing on the same book, on the same page, to the same letter. All right. And that's what Devontae's saying, is make sure you guys are on the same page.
I got something to say. Can
Please.
you hear me? So when I explain legacy, I don't explain it till I get an objection. That's the only time I explain legacy. But when I do explain legacy, break it down, like Luke's saying, like, what is legacy? Like, you can explain to them when you pass away, what's going to happen? Say if they don't get legacy, what's going to happen? Well, I don't know. Well, this is what's going to happen. Your son is going to have to go to a funeral director, right? And what is he going to do? What is the funeral director going to do? He's going to upcharge you on everything, right? Upcharge you on everything. So you're going to have to pay full price on your casket, your service, and your flowers. And that's going to take more money away from the death benefit that your son receives. He's like, yeah. So that's why legacy is so great, is your son doesn't have to go to a funeral director. We have our own merchandise legacy. You're going to get 40% off everything. So at the end of the day, yeah, you could be saving money, a couple dollars with another company, but you're not going to get the legacy, and you're going to be spending more money. So you have to go more deep on some of this stuff, but it works. Just have to explain stuff a little bit more.
I love that. You really want to make sure they have a great understanding of legacy. And that's how I got, the 6 referrals the other day. So legacy is almost like, for those of you who don't know, legacy is almost like our no cost benefits, where it covers a majority of their casket, their headstone, and their vault. Plus it provides a funeral negotiator to review the bill of the family at the time of the passing, so their life insurance policy doesn't get taken advantage of by the funeral director. Right. So that was a brief explanation of it, but we really go into deep detail of it on the calls. You're able to sponsor that out to 4 additional people at no additional cost. So the legacy membership, it's $4 per month. It's included in the premium of the senior life insurance company policy, but you are able to sponsor 4 family members into the legacy program for free for the family members. So we like to go ahead and get 4 referrals, because Senior Life allows us to sponsor in 4 family members to legacy at no additional cost. So that's why we have the minimum of 4 referrals. And it's usually, the people they care about most. But yesterday I went to the to be notified people. I was like, okay, so we got your 4 legacy members. And after that, we need 4 more people that need to be notified upon your passing. So you mentioned that you had 5 sisters. What's the name of the oldest? Right? Instead of saying, okay, what's your sister's name? I said, what's the name of the oldest? Right? The more specific you are about the referrals, the better and easier it is for the client to think of their name and phone number off the top of their head. Because people, like we know, do not like to think for themselves. They need somebody to think for them. So the more specific you are about the referrals, the easier it is to get, right? So Devontae, when you got 32 referrals, obviously, she just started ripping them off. But what were some of the specific questions that you asked her to get specific names?
Yeah.
And take notes right now.
So I'm not sure about you guys' process, but I have to look on a fill information guide. I guess kind of similar to what you just said about the programs you guys have. So I started with siblings, right? Because all about, I don't want to like coach Luke, but during my warm up, I kind of figure out, a little bit about their family. That's what you guys ever heard of the thing called form. But I go through that with them, right? So I'm learning about how many siblings you have, right? How many children you have over the age of 18 or over the age of 21. So I'm going through, I remember that. Okay, who's your oldest sister? Who's your oldest brother, right? I'm going through. And then I went to, all right, your children. Okay. They have children under the age of 18. Who do you want to take care of your children that's not already on this list? And then of course they'd be like, I'm not, hey, matter of fact, your parents are living, right? And I started doing that. And one thing that I did, I never, after I got to probably like 8 or 9 people, I just kept saying, who's next? Who's next? Who's next? Until they stopped talking.
Oh
And we just went
man.
through the entire, I know it's my old school training, but just going, who's next? Who's next? And then eventually, like, they'll run out. But that's what I did for 32 people straight. I just, who's next? And they just kept giving them to me.
I love that. That's fire, right? So that client, I'm sure he had a more of a genuine relationship with than some of the other clients, right? He had a deeper connection with that client than probably most of his other clients. So that's what I'm talking about is milking the cow that's ready to milk, right? So that one's not gonna, it's not gonna hit on everybody, right? You're not gonna hit the winning lottery ticket every single time, but there's gonna be that one client that's that winning lottery ticket that's gonna provide you enough leads for you to at least last the rest of the week, right? So you want to at least get into 25 presentations per day. 25 presentations a week, right? Which is 5 presentations per day on a minimum level. So if you need to get into 5 presentations per day and you've collected 32 referrals, how many presentations do you think you're going to get in that week? At least 15 to 20, right? So that's a huge, huge selling point for you guys to work on this as an individual, as a human being in personal development, getting better at referrals, getting better at networking, right? We talk a little bit about like your network is your net worth. Right. So the more that you can continue to work into your network with the clients, the more net worth is going to be deposited into your pocket and the less you're actually having to outspend on ads and or leads. So let's continue to get better in that area and really make that a primary focus.
Label, an accurate label or a mislabel, but you're going to cause the kind of thinking that you need from the other side. And also it makes them think about how hard they feel the deadline really is anyway. If you say, seems like the world's going to come to an end. Well, it's not going to come to an end, is most likely the response, and then they're going to tell you exactly what's going on the other side. The other way to respond to deadlines is with calibrated questions, what and how questions. What happens if we don't get this done in time? How do we get back on track if we fall behind schedule? How do we pull victory from the ashes of defeat if we don't meet the deadline? Any one of those calibrated questions are designed to shape their thinking, which again, how do we pull victory from the ashes of defeat if we don't meet the deadline, begins to get them to look at success, and that's their overriding goal anyway. When you're feeling attacked, the things that you really want to say, the words you can just taste how good they're going to feel when they cross your lips, are probably wrong.
That's hilarious.
We're giving into an aspect of our natural human nature that wants to get back, that wants to put somebody down, that wants to feel like we've gotten the last word in when the last word is a cheap shot. We're giving into that piece of ourselves that's 75% negative. That human nature aspect where we want to get in the last shot, where we're afraid to not have control. We're afraid to not have the last negative word. By the same reason that getting the last cheap shot in was bad, the last impression is a lasting impression. The last impression seeds the next interaction. When you begin to talk about it like that it seeds the next interaction, you begin to realize how you can really get the upper hand. Last negative word. By the same reason that getting the last cheap shot in was bad, the last impression is a lasting impression.
The last impression is a lasting impression. we hear a lot about first impressions, right? I think everybody's heard about, oh, the first impression, the first impression, the first impression. I was talking to my little brother the other day about the first impression. I said, dude, even if I have a bad first impression with somebody, I know that I can make it up in the next 30 minutes and they're going to love me. I was like, even if I have a horrible first interaction with somebody, I know I can cover ground in the next 30 minutes. Why? Because I didn't even know this, but I understand that the last impression is a lasting impression, right? So I may have shot myself in the foot at the first impression, right? But I know that if I spend enough time with somebody, I can make a lasting impression. So I really think that's valuable.
The last impression seeds the next interaction. When you begin to talk about
the last impression seeds the next interaction. So we're talking about follow-ups, right? A lot of your guys is 30% of my income when I did, I think I did 298,000 on my own personal pen last year. 298,000. 30% of that was follow-ups. 30% of that was, so the other 70% was literally first call closes, but the other 30% of that was literally follow-ups. All right. And so follow-ups are huge in this industry. And if you don't have a good follow-up system, if you're not putting these clients into your sheets, if you don't have for me, my follow-up system, it's a little old school. It's not the best, but I put it right here on my desk. I don't know if you guys can see because we're looking at this right now, but I literally on my desk, I have all of the clients that I need to follow up with right here, right in front of me. So make sure you have the clients that you want to target and continue to target them until you get their account number.
it like that it seeds the next interaction. You begin to realize how you can really get the upper hand by making the last words positive. You sit down with somebody in a contentious negotiation, you want to open it positively. You might say, look, we're here because we want to make a deal. We're here because long-term relationships matter to us. We're here because we want our partners to be profitable. Just take what you would have said at the beginning to try to open it positively. Take it and put it at the end. When you've gone through the contention, say, we're here because we'd love to have a great long-term relationship.
So when we push for the sale 3 or 4 times, we push for the account number, that usually rises. Contention usually rises, right? A little bit of tension usually rises when you push for that account number 3 or 4 times, right? And then maybe you get it on the 3rd or 4th try. When I say push for the account number, I go all the way through the presentation. I ask for the account number once. I get denied. I back up and I say, look, I'm going to start over and fill you back in. I start over completely from the beginning, go through it a second time. They say no to the account number again. I go back and I address everything one more time. 3rd time, no, right? So I'm not like, okay, what's the account number? What's the account number? What's the account number? What's the account number? I'm going back and I'm reiterating everything that we've already gone through. Okay. I'm going back and I'm making sure the client understands everything that we already spoke about. And then I ask for the account number again and again and again after I reiterate and we re-talk about the value of the program, because they're not is it the value or is it the price? Right? Most of the time, it's always the value. People have 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 bucks a month to pay into life insurance. So what is the value that they're missing? Go back and try to find out the thing that they feel they are losing. The single dominating factor. What are they going to lose if they don't make this deal? Go back, try to figure that out, come back in again, and go for the account number. Okay. And if it doesn't, what Chris is saying is you want to make it a positive, lasting impact.
We'd love for our partners to prosper from doing business with us. Let us know how we can proceed. How do you want to proceed? But make the last point you made to be inarguably positive and collaborative, and the last impression will be the lasting impression, and it'll seed the next interaction in a very positive way.
Awesome. Super awesome. Super awesome. Super awesome. So we talked a lot about that, lasting impressions, right? Feeling out what they think they're losing. So I want to obviously get into a little bit of breakout sessions and get into the next part of the meeting. So I'm going to kind of just wrap it up at that. Does anybody have anything they want to add?